The Fed is picking up the pace in tightening. They're stung by their failure to see inflation coming. To be fair, it's certainly not limited to the US. In the UK, inflation is running at 9%. But even if the supply constraints that are the cause were hard to see coming, the $1.9 trillion Uber stimulus that the Democrats passed last year provided Jay Powell and the rest of the FOMC a perfect excuse to at least get rates back to normal. Instead, they were focused on maximizing employment. And on this score, they can certainly claim success. Even though inflation is hurting just about everyone, it's easier to deal with it if you have a job. Now, the Fed is on track to throw some people out of work to bring down inflation for the rest of us. Powell even tested the waters for the 75 basis point hike before the meeting. Many years ago, Alan Greenspan used Alan Murray of the Wall Street Journal to telegraph his intentions so he could assess the impact. CNBC's Steve Leisman is today's Alan Murray.
Brian, thanks very much. I just want to say my reporting at this point is that a 75 basis point rate hike to be announced at the second day of the meeting this week on Wednesday is very likely, a real distinct possibility.
When Steve Leisman says my reporting, he is in a subtle way referring back to the Fed. There's no way he would run a story like that without solid information. Markets reacted on the Friday, and a few days later the Fed followed through. So the Fed is sensitive to how markets react to their moves. They'll also be increasingly sensitive to the political reaction.
But the Fed can slow demand by getting a lot of people fired and making families poorer. So I just want to say, you know what's worse than high inflation and low unemployment? It's high inflation and a recession with millions of people out of work. And I hope you'll reconsider that as you before you drive this economy off a cliff.
Now, I'm not about to say that Senator Elizabeth Warren is mainstream, but her simplification of Fed policy as throwing people out of work to curb inflation fits easily into a soundbite and will be heard more widely as the unemployment rate goes up. At SL Advisors, we invest in midstream energy infrastructure. That's pipelines, storage, and processing. We sit between the producers of oil and gas and the customers, which are often utilities, export terminals, or refineries. If you're interested in learning more about the energy sector and interest rates, then don't forget to subscribe and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Our handles are in the description box below. Now let's turn to oil and gas. Democrats have been relentlessly critical of the energy sector for years. First over climate change, blaming traditional energy companies for selling the reliable energy that consumers want, vilifying them for damaging the planet. And now, because prices have risen, mostly as a result of public policies intended to dissuade new oil and gas production, they want more output. Chevron CEO Mike Wirth recently published an open letter to President Biden in which he said, "Your administration has largely sought to criticize and at times vilify our industry."
It's mildly sensitive. I didn't know they'd get their feelings hurt that quickly.
The president thinks it's easy to increase oil production. Let's listen to Mike Wirth on this topic.
Incentives today are to pump as much as you can, and the decisions that lead to today's activity were made 2 years ago. And there are lead times in all of these things. It's land work, it's permitting, it's roads, it's infrastructure, it's drilling rigs, completion crews. There's a lot that goes into planning and executing production growth.
The problem is that Democrat energy policies are schizophrenic. If you ran an energy business, would you really feel persuaded to invest in more production by this president? You would not. And that's why energy prices are likely to trend higher, because Democrats have been dishonest in promoting the idea that renewables will bring in cheap energy with well-paid jobs. If that was true, it would have happened already without needing any government support. Energy demand will continue to grow around the world, and opposition from climate protesters will keep new pipeline construction down, which is good for the sector. Natural gas continues to offer the world's best chance to curb emissions by substituting for coal, but the purists think all fossil fuels are bad. Remember to hug a climate protester and drive them to their next protest. We manage investment products to profit from the outcomes I've discussed. To find out more about what we're thinking, sign up for our twice-weekly blog at sl-advisors.com. We always love to hear from you, so if you have any comments or blog ideas, please leave them down below. I'm Simon Lack. Thank you for watching this video.